So tell me, how do you like your ex? Snow and dirt? Deep snow and mud?
Or just normal?
Well, if you have a 2024 Subaru Crosstrek, you get to pick. Want to see more? Stay with us. G'day, sport. Remember those days when Paul Hogan, the true Australian, Crocodile Dundee himself, used to do them Subaru Outback commercials? Well, here's a Subaru that's not an Outback, but it's a very cool, well, more than anything else, I like to think of it as an Attack Beetle, because it has that stance, that aggressive stance that'll leap upon you. But what it actually is a Crosstrek Sport. And the Crosstrek is a real interesting little vehicle because I do believe it's based on the Impreza sedan, but just based on it because it has a lot more room as far as the tail end goes. It is a small wagon essentially, and I wouldn't really call it, I'd call it almost, it's between a subcompact and a compact SUV. Because the Forester, to me, is their compact SUV. And slightly up from that, they like to really split these categories, are the wagons, like the Outback wagon, which is actually got quite a bit of room in it. I can't remember. I believe the Forester has a little bit more room in it than the Outback wagon. But that didn't used to always be the case. I believe when the Forester first came out, the Outback wagon still had more room. But I don't know, I could be incredibly wrong about that. But speaking of things that are incredible, this car has been incredibly popular since its introduction. And it rides on a little 105-inch wheelbase and naturally has Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Now, what in the world is that actually? Well, with Subaru, the way they look at it, they have a four-cylinder boxer engine, which is flat. And they mount it longitudinally, meaning that the crankshaft of the engine runs fore and aft this way. So it's mounted nice and low because of just the basic architecture of the engine itself. And then the crankshaft comes straight out of the back and attaches directly to the transmission, which then attaches directly to the rear drive shaft. So you have a right angle turn where the power goes to the front wheels, but it goes straight back to the rear differential. Now, what does that mean, symmetrical? Well, I think what they're talking about is with vehicles like this, most in the class have a transverse mounted four-cylinder engine, an inline four usually, and that has to take a right angle turn from the crankshaft because the crankshaft would be running this way, back and forth, instead of front and back like the Subaru does. So they has to make a 90-degree turn power-wise to get to the rest of the vehicle, to power the vehicle, to zoom down the road and all that stuff. So that's part of their system, but one of the biggest advantage of it is the Boxer engine has a real low profile, which means it's mounted fairly low in the engine compartment and lower center of gravity overall. So that's what they call their symmetrical all-wheel drive. But I call it the Attack Beetle because I quite like its aggressive little stance. And this is a particularly attractive one because the Sport model has a bunch of very, very useful features on it. It's kind of a blend of some of the other ones. It's not quite like a wilderness version, but it's a really, really well-equipped car and great fun to drive. And now let us examine further. Let's take a look at that symmetrical all-wheel drive from the perspective of the Boxer engine. Careful now, careful. Approach with caution. Now I earlier referred to this as being kind of an Attack Beetle of a car. Well, what do we have here? We have the Spider. What used to be a place up there in the old days, because I used to have a 80s Subaru, used to be a spare tire right there, but now we have a composite feeder of air to the automobile. The flat 4 Subaru is sort of unique. The only other company that really enjoys their flatness, besides, like the Honda Goldwing motorcycle, is of course Porsche. And Subaru has been doing the Boxer since they've been making cars, pretty close to it. And it's evolved over time and become more and more sophisticated. There's turbocharging, there's not turbocharging. This little beauty here is a 2.5 liter, normally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. 1, 2, 3, 4. They are in opposition. There is in fact boxing going back and forth as you thunder down the road. This particular engine is tuned a little more towards, the thing about these Boxer 4s in my opinion is you can really tune them more for power or more for fuel economy, but you have a lot of leeway to do that with either side. This one is a little more tuned for power, and it does in fact make 182 horsepower at 5,800 RPM. There is a 2-liter turbo, or is it a turbo? I'm not sure, but there's a smaller version of this engine available in other Crosstreks. But this is a good one for this car. It seems to be very adequate in the power department, and it doesn't have the complexity of turbocharging. It just has the funness that makes it a flat Subaru. Part of the symmetrical all-wheel drive system is because the engine mounted kind of low like it is with the Spider on top of it there. Get back. Makes for good weight distribution, both with traction and just general handling and everything else. This has always been a strong point for Subarus because they're just very, very well balanced cars. And having that weight down low that the Boxer affords is part of the reason that it's well balanced. So we'll start here with the air box. We feed all the way around in here, and here we have our Spider, our manifold that does in fact feed all the 4 cylinders with, I believe, direct fuel injection. I keep saying that with just about everybody because everybody's doing that. Now, is this a type of a direct injection system that also has some port aspects to it, that it switches back and forth between port and direct in order to keep carbon buildup at a minimum? Because that's a problem with direct injection engines. So I believe Subaru has adopted that because it's getting really popular with everybody. That's how you deal with that carbon buildup, is you also have port fuel injection. Toyota's been doing it for a while now. And incidentally, Toyota does own part of Subaru. I believe it's a third, something like that. So there's a lot of cooperation, and they even build some models together. They're all electric. Sedan is both a Subaru and a Toyota, and they both sell versions of it, as is the 86 with Toyota and the BRZ, I think it is, with Subaru. So you have those, some little variations are what are basically the same cars. There's a tight relationship between these two companies. So what else do we have? Well, we used to have a big timing belt array, but now I'm pretty sure we got chains in there instead. Instead of timing belts, we have timing chains. Then you got your serpentine accessory drive right here. And you got your electric power steering, and you got very conveniently located 12-volt battery right there. But the most convenient thing on this car that will encourage you, and I encourage you, to change your oil every 5,000 miles, even though they probably say 10. There's your oil filter right there. I mean, it could not be more accessible and easier to get to. The drain plug on the bottom of the engine, I'm not sure about, but I'm willing to bet it is likewise very, very easy to access. So you got this great little 182 horsepower, and this feeds into a CVT, continuously variable transmission, also known as the Lineartronic in Subaru talk. Now, how is this gearbox? Well, I'm not a huge fan of it myself, but it does, as CVTs go, it does a fine job. I mean, it delivers both good fuel economy, and it's a very smooth multi-ratio kind of thing. However, I still prefer, I believe you can get this with a 6-speed manual, which I would totally recommend that engine, that engine transmission combination. And it does have 7 manual speeds that you can select with this particular transmission. And I mean, the CVTs have come a long way. They're not quite as rubber bandy as they used to be, and they're not as noisy as they used to be, but they're still not, in my opinion, as crisp and clean as a good automatic transmission of conventional nature, or better yet, with a car like this, a manual transmission. So I don't want to give the impression that this engine and this transmission are not happy together. They are. They get along fine. I just think it's a little bit better to have an alternative type of system, because as much as Subaru has dedicated their time and effort in the CVTs, they're still CVTs and they have their own limitations. And on the positive side, they tend to be a lot simpler, and they tend to be something that's fairly reliable for the most part. That wasn't that way initially when they first came out, but nowadays it's a pretty reliable system. As is this wonderful boxer engine, even though it has almost looks like one of them alien things that attaches onto your face, and shoves that feeding tube down your throat. Well, no, it's just an intake manifold. Take no notice of it. It will not hurt you. 225, 55 R18 is your tire size on these beautiful ebony black wheels. They are absolutely lovely. Incidentally, this hood up here, I was just underneath it showing you the motor. That hood is made of aluminum. It's so wonderfully light. I mean, it's incredible how light it is. It's one of the things that you're seeing more and more of. And it's not only good from an overall weight standpoint. This thing weighs about 3,300 pounds, as I recall. But it's great from the standpoint of when you need to lift the hood up. It's just, you could have like a bad sprain on one of your arms and you could still lift the hood without hurting yourself. I'm telling you. Sport. How's it going, Sport? Oh, and the brakes, excellent, excellent, substantial disc up there with a very generously sized caliper. And you're seeing a lot of good brakes on cars these days. A lot of good brakes. As we flow aft to see this beautiful little kind of a nipped in buttock section of the car. It could be, you know, if it was a big square thing, it could be like an Outback wagon, or even square, it could be a Forester. But no, this is a Crosstrek with its needs. And let's take a look. Where is it, the thing here? I just had the thing here. There it is. It's not power adjusted, or power lifted rather, but it doesn't need to be, because it probably has some aluminum parts too, because it seems very light. But here's our wonderful little cargo area. This is about 19.47 cubic feet of space. And look at this beautiful mat. I have to look at the Monroney. I'm not sure if that's standard or if that is an option, but that is a really great solid rubber mat. Look at this cute little guy right here. You got your little light right here. That's fantastic. But you have a little cubby back here for a drink if you want to sit back here, and here's for your significant other. They can sit their drink there too. And you have about a 60-40 breakdown. And if you fold those seats, both of them forward, you have like 54 cubic feet of space. Not bad for such a small package. And underneath here, we got this here. And if I can get my finger on this thing here, there we go. Look at there. You got a compact spare tire. And what is that wonderful thing that I absolutely love? This may be a Toyota thing that's come over. It is an aluminum scissor jacks. So you got everything you need if should you have a flat tire to easily change and keep on going. Not one of them crappy little repair kits or anything like that. Not on this car. This car is made to be practically good. You can take it out camping, you can put your kayak on the top of it, which millions of people seem to do, and take it to their favorite lakey spot or to the ocean with the surfboard on the top, and you can drive it on the beach with this all-wheel drive. And there's so many reasons why this is a popular car. And I'll tell you a story. I had a friend who had one of these and was involved in an accident on the interstate. And this vehicle managed to roll, which is not easy to do because it's got a nice wide stance and a fairly long wheelbase. What is the wheelbase for this thing? Speaking of which, I hate to say something like that without telling you. And the wheelbase is, it is 105.1 inches. There you go. But anyway, she managed, the vehicle managed to roll, and she had her baby in a car seat in the back seat, and they both emerged completely unscathed from that accident. And they went out and bought a larger Subaru because they have a growing family and they needed more room. But that's always a ringing endorsement for any vehicle when you're involved in a very serious accident like that and you walk away. That's fantastic. So good on you, Subaru. She's a wonderful person too, so I'm so glad that there were no problems. But there you go, folks. You even have these nice little, on the Sport, you got these great little gold accents. There's one there, and there's the stripe along there, and back here, there's one there. Woo! See, this is one of these things, these little attentions to detail, you see, that make a car something that you can get really fond of and like having in your family. Welcome. Bonjour, mes amis. So, with the Subaru Crosstrek in its Sport edition, there's an interesting thing I just discovered. Apparently, it doesn't come. It's very, very well equipped for the most part, but I can't find a navigation system. So I don't think there is one. I think you need to use your own as far as either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, I guess. But there's nothing here I can see right off the bat that indicates that there's a navigation system. But what we do have is something unusual and refreshing. We have actual mechanical analog instrumentation. Very, very well lit, by the way. Very contrasty and beautiful and easy to read. And I love the traditional analog instrumentation when it comes to your driver's cockpit. Because I just find the virtual stuff is beautiful and it certainly works fine, but I can't help but think, I think one of the things that bothers me about it is I feel like down the road, if you keep the vehicle a long time, you're more likely to have trouble with that than you are with an old traditional analog instrument system, because they don't, I don't know many vehicles that have had problems with the old mechanical types of instruments and gauges. They usually work fine. But now everything is, I mean, at least the information that is being sent to these mechanical devices do go through electronics. I mean, they come from an electronic sensor and everything else. So, I don't know. It's just, it's all up to you. It's all up to your aesthetic. But I think, and the drawback for some to a mechanical instrument display like this is you can't really change it. But what you can change is you do have your center system here, your center, what I call your trip computer, although it's oh so much more. There's so much more to it. But still telling me I got 300 miles to empty. How many miles have I gone on this one? I thought I had this set up. Oh, there's our tire pressure monitor. It won't take any readings until we're rolling, but that's fine. It's 68 degrees outside, 5:44 p.m. We have gotten, so far, 26.7 miles per gallon, which is good. but this is a compact slash subcompact SUV. I would hope for a little better, but it's early days yet, even though I have gone 93 miles in this vehicle already. So we'll see. But all that information is there for you. And there's an information thing here that I don't understand. What are these buttons here? I don't understand. I have found the modern Subaru to be a bit confusing initially. If you own the car, you'll get used to it. But especially as we've migrated over to a full touchscreen environment, as this car has done, it gets more and more confusing. For me, anyway, in terms of, I like things that are very logical and intuitive, because I think that's what you out there, the potential purchaser of one of these vehicles, that's what you kind of like to have. Is you kind of like to have a vehicle that when you sit in it, you get comfortable very, very quickly, and you know where everything is. And since we have so much versatility in our cars now, and so many different things we can change and alter to suit our driving, it needs to be readily at hand and easily accessible. So, what else do we have here? If it turned out we got an A and B, yeah, we sure do. We have an A and B trip meter that's just a button. This guy right here. Very easy to access. You hold it down and it will reset. Beautifully simple. That's kind of going along with the mechanical nature of the gauges. It's simple, it's traditional, it's easy to find, it's always there. You don't have to plow through any menus for that. So, before I get down to this incredibly complex steering wheel, let's go over to our touchscreen. And one of the things you may observe right off the bat is I got a little bit of a, I could close that, maybe. Let's do this. Why don't I do this? That's the wrong button for that. Well, how do I close the shady shade? No, it won't do that. That's up, that's down, that's... Well, I don't know how to close the shade. Is it manual? Of course it is. Okay, so what you will see on vehicles like this, or maybe your Ram pickup, or maybe your Volvos, is a portrait-oriented screen as opposed to a landscape. I happen to much prefer landscape myself, but I think that kind of comes down to, well, it's just a preference thing. I mean, in both cases, when maps are displayed, either landscape or portrait, they're very, very good. And I've never, on a portrait situation, seen a bad map display, and I've seen some on the landscape display where they only use part of the screen to display the landscape, and then they have a whole bunch of stuff on the side that you don't necessarily need, but that's just the way it's set up. So, as I think I mentioned before, we have no navigation system on this car, which really surprises me because it's got plenty of everything else. Oh wow, I have a text message. We'll ignore that for right now. It's going to make that noise again. And don't worry, we're not about to be crushed by a train. We're not sitting on a railroad track. At least I don't think we are. So what do we have? Well, here is our home button. Now, it's kind of like let's say an iPhone that doesn't have an actual button but has a virtual button. And that's what gets you to your main theater here. Now, normally, this is where I was expecting to find a navigation thing, but there ain't none, see? You got your valet mode, auto vehicle hold, vehicle dynamic control, and all that good stuff. Now, what if we want to go to settings, and what will this give us? What choices will this give us? Well, we have a lot of our main stuff here, and what I'm looking for is, I know there is an alteration, or not necessarily an alteration, but different ways of configuring your xDrive. And your xDrive is, of course, Subaru's all-wheel drive system. So why don't I go over to car and vehicle dynamics control and then X mode. Here we go. Now we'll be able to select it. And there's the three we have. We have snow and dirt, we have deep snow and mud, and we have normal. And we are sitting on normal at the moment. but that is a control unit for our symmetrical all-wheel drive system. And normal is probably going to be everything you need for the most part. But that's it. You know, I'm surprised we don't have like comfort and all those other steerings, but they've just decided not to do that. So what else do we have on this particular unit? Well, we have cruise control acceleration. Now this is interesting. It's set on dynamic. You can have eco, comfort, and standard. And what is this? Well, when you have cruise control, and it's going to, there's that train again. If you're going to have a system where the vehicle is going to take off under its own power, like from you've got your adaptive cruise control on, you're in kind of like stop and go type traffic, then all of a sudden it picks up the vehicle, or you're leaving a stop and you hit the cruise resume button, or just touch the gas for that matter. It's the speed at which it will accelerate, and you can set it to be more economical, much gradual, comfort, a little more aggressive, and then standard, which is pretty much what I would consider to be the way most human beings would accelerate the rate. And then you get dynamic, which I think is all hell breaks. I think it pins you back in the seat. Well, no, it doesn't do anything like that, but it's a bit more non-eco comfort or standardy. Let's put it that way. The fact that that even exists on this car is kind of interesting to me, because I don't think that's a real critical thing, but you have that adjustment for yourself. We have steering responsive headlights, which you can turn on and off, and I always liked those. When they initially came out, where the steering dictates the direction that the headlights go. If you turn to the left, the headlights will go a little to the left, especially on tight corners. It can help you see better. And by the way, this goes all the way back. Did y'all ever see that movie Tucker with Jeff Bridges? It involved the Tucker automobile, and the Tuckers, early Tuckers, had something like that. I think it had a central steering light in addition to the regular headlights, and that just followed the steering. It was literally cable attached to the steering, so that it would tend to go and illuminate the direction that you have the car pointed through the steering system. So interesting stuff. I mean, lots of fun. Then we have our what else? Our auto start stop, which you know everything about. That's just to save you gas. And here's our driving assistance. Now, right now we have lane departure off, and that's why we have this incredibly annoying yellow light right there to tell you that it's off. Where I live and the driving I do with these vehicles, for the most part, that is a real annoyance to have any control where the steering tries to steer you in the middle of the lane if you start to deviate to one side or the other. And or it has a vibration that vibrates the seat or the steering wheel in the case of a lot of GM products, or it just has a buzzer or something like that. And I find all these annoying up here, because it's not unusual on two-lane highways for you to have to move over the lane, over the stripe a little bit in one direction or the other to avoid everything from people pulling in to their checking their mail at their mailboxes, to people out walking, people riding bikes, all kinds of reasons that you want to maybe move a little bit. And you don't need the car to tell you you're doing that. So fortunately, it's off. And we love the fact that we can turn it off. We also have a rear vehicle detection system, which is great for backing up. And I believe this one works fine. This is a thing about having two cars right now. When you're in a parking lot and a pedestrian is walking behind you in that parking lot and you're about to back up, it'll beep and tell you. And most vehicles nowadays have a feature like that, and they also have a feature that will automatically brake the car to keep you from running over that individual. So that's a very good safety. It's the kind of thing Consumer Reports really likes, because it is a very proactive type of system to keep you from getting into mayhem and hurting somebody or yourself. So that's good. More settings. Our warning volume for our morning whatevers is, what the heck? Minimum, I guess? Minimum, medium, and max. Okay, well, I'll leave it at medium. We want it quieter. And then we have, you can set your units. If you find yourself in a non-empirical situation and you want to You want to have a look at your how many liters of fuel you have left. That's what you do with that. Okay, so have we done all that? Yep, we've done all that. We've looked there, we've looked there, we've looked there. This is, of course, your connection interface with your phone, which is very important on this car. And this is your driver profile if you're into those. I'm not. I hate them. But if you own the car, good idea actually to put all your information in there that it asks. What does it ask for anyway? Let's have a look. You edit it. And Mr. G is, oh man, I'm not about to touch Mr. G. No, sorry, Mr. G. I did not mean to interface with you. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Okay, so let's drop down, and here we have, in a very conventional and convenient location, your onboard QI charger for your cell phone. And this one works very, very well. It does not matter that I have a case on my iPhone. It does a very good job of charging. Migrate a little further back. Here we have a very, very conventional mechanical gear shift. You see? And if you want to go into, this is, of course, a continuously variable transmission. If you want to go to the manual side of things, you kick it right over there, and we have, you can start out, I always like to see that you can start out in second gear if you want to. Right down here is it's telling you what gear you're in. And then we have our paddles right here if we desire to, shift manually. And how many speeds is it? Hell, I can't remember. Well, give me 1 second. Give me 2 seconds. There we go. It has linear 8 speeds, 8-speed manual transmission when you're in your manual mode of your CVT. Very nice, very convenient. Keep going back. What's this? Heated seats, high and low. Very nice. Ventilated, not at this time. Oh, one thing I did skip because it's underneath here, but you do have your, you have an auxiliary plug. Remember those, a 3.5 millimeter? That is great if you want to plug in an older device and listen to it. I love that. That's a real nice, no reason not to have that. But there it is. Subaru thought about that. You also have your USB-C and your USB-A configuration for yourself. And here we have our tea in our cup holder, and we open up this little guy here, and we have a fairly deep storage unit in our center console. Very nice. And how about this glove box? Oh boy, look at the size of the manuals. Massive. And here's the actual Monroney, as you can see. This would be on your window if this vehicle was to sell to the public, which it may be at some point, as a certified used or something like that. I don't know what they're going to do with that. But anyway, fairly roomy. You could get a smaller tablet in there without any too much problem. And let's open this back up here and get a little more air and water and oh yeah, light in the situation. Now look at this. Look at this. Is it artificial leather? Is it leather? No, man, this is a textile. This is a very, very nice and what appears to be a very durable fabric. And the support of these front seats is really nice. It's pretty firm and does have good, decent side bolsters for your sport activity, since this is your sport model. And headroom is very, very good on this car, and room in general in the front seat is more than you might think for a compact or a subcompact situation. So without further ado, we shall go and check out the back seat. I give you a ride to town in my Uber. There is no Uber here. This is, in fact, we're now going to ingress the Crosstrek Sport. As you can see, the door opens only almost 90 degrees, which is good. It's a pretty decent opening here. Not for a huge person, but for most people, I think it's very easy to get into this car. Now, it does have a fairly high belt line. You know what we need back here? We need the lights on here. There we go. It has a fairly high belt line, but it doesn't really feel claustrophobic. And the room is not bad. Legroom is surprisingly good considering This is not a huge car on the outside, as you no doubt have noticed. We do have a pretty substantial drive shaft tunnel, though, which is surprising for a Subaru. I don't remember them having huge drive shaft tunnels, but then again, I haven't driven one in a little while. Here we have USB-C and USB-A ports, convenient to your rear seat passengers. And our window goes down 100%. Yay! I'm so happy to see that, because a few years ago, the Outback and the Subaru station wagon family had a rear glass that I swear it only came down about this far and was like pointed. It was like the most least dog friendly of all the rear seat window situations, and Subaru prides itself on being pet friendly. So they took care of that. They fixed that completely on all their models pretty much. But this, the more I sit on this wonderful fabric, it's not the most luxurious fabric in the world, but it feels really durable and it's comfortable. And unfortunately, we don't have heated back here, but this is not a super expensive car either. I would point that out. Now here's our armrest, and with our built-in cup holders. And let's have a check out here. Let's see what I. Yeah, that's good. The height is, it's a little higher than a lot. I'd put it about an inch lower, and I think it'd be, don't listen to me. What do I know? But it's nice to have, period. The fact that you have an armrest is always good. And we have our seats that are very easy to fold forward to expand your cargo room. And I think we're looking at 60/40, aren't we? Let's see. Let's have a look here. Pull up here. That's that. And over here. Yep. All right, we're 60/40 back here. So could you get a third person in here? Yeah, but they'd splay their legs. It would be really tight for 3 across here. For 2, it's not bad at all. It's actually pretty comfortable. So the only thing that's a little, I would say from a psychological standpoint, makes you feel like it's not as roomy as it actually is the fact that the windows are fairly small. But that's not a big deal. And you do have decent headroom. It's not near as roomy as the front seat is, but you do have your headroom for an adult that I think can ride back here. I don't think I'd want to take a long trip back here if I was an adult, but for around town, short trips, no problem. So there we go. There is our Subaru Crosstrek Sport interior with those fine fabric seats. I do like them. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I can share with you something. I can share with you knowledge. You can always tell on these reviews if I'm driving a Subaru one easy way, and that's if this light is on right here that says, and it's basically your lane deviation warning is turned off, because I always have to turn it off on Subarus because it doesn't work for me. It's annoying. In the conditions under which I live, where it is frequently required to deviate from the set lane for safety reasons more than anything else, and I don't like it going beep, beep, or whatever it does all the time. Let's find out what it does, shall we? Is it easy to turn on and off? Of course not. I'd have to go into here. And settings, I guess. See, I'm weaving all over the road trying to turn this off. The weaving all over the road warning off. I'm telling you right now. Well, none of this helps. Let's go back. This is what we need. This little symbol here that has the car on it. That's what you want. Vehicle dynamic control. Cruise control. Auto vehicle hold. Driving assistance, I guess. Lane departure off. Okay, let's turn it on. Oops. All functions now. Let's see what it does. It's on now, and everyone's happy. It's a beep. See, and it's trying to steer the car into a treacherous abyss. I need to turn on off. There we go. All right, yay! See, I'm mastering the Subaru. The dude on the Beamer in front of me this what a lot of people don't know. You need to know this. It's not a Subaru thing, it's a BMW thing. BMW cars are called Bimmers. BMW motorcycles are called Beamers. Now, a lot of times you'll find people who will call a Bimmer a Beamer. And a Beamer ain't a Beamer, and a Beamer ain't a Bimmer. Bimmer, car, Beamer, motorcycle. Okay? Do you understand that? Okay? I used to have a very tight relationship with BMW on the motorrad side, the motorcycle side. We were friends. Now, I know that these two riders in front of me are riding, everything they're doing is correct. It's so nice to see. They're dressed properly. They're exercising good, intelligent lane discipline. Although the guy in the front seems to be having a slight issue with something on the bike and he's trying to figure it out. I've been there. You been there? I've been there. Okay, sorry. Subaru, Crosstrek, Sport. Now, one of the things a lot of people have to get used to, let's say, for example, you've not owned a Subaru before, and now you're buying a Subaru. They do things a little differently than most, not all, but most. And one of them is the orientation of this massive touchscreen. The massive touchscreen is in portrait mode instead of landscape mode. You will either like it or dislike it. There's pluses and minuses to both approaches, in my opinion. So, I'm not a big fan of this particular thing because I seem to think it encourages the engineers to put more on the touchscreen. And whenever you use a touchscreen, what happens? You have to look at it. And I like switches and buttons on a variety of functions just because that way you really don't have to take your eyes off the road. You know, heads-up displays, a lot of people think, oh, they're great, they're fantastic, you can keep your eye on the road. But the fact of the matter is, here's the thing, since I'm always complaining and turning off heads-up displays, this is why I don't like it. I find them to be just as distracting as having to look over here. And the reason is this. When you look down on it like you want to get some of the information that is beamed in front of you, you look down on it and your eyes focus on that. When your eyes focus on that, they are no longer focusing on everything around you. And only in your peripheral vision will you possibly see that deer running out in front of you or whatever. I just don't think they serve a really good purpose. There's a reason why they have them on fighter planes. Kind of a different environment of operation. Excuse me. So, I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. Now then, I was just daydreaming for a minute there. Road noise. It's there, but it's not excessive. Wind noise. It's there, but it's certainly not acceptable. It's actually pretty quiet in the wind noise front. Overall, the cabin is a very acceptable level of noise. It's not like your super luxury cars, but it's not like some Econobox either. It's actually pretty damn good, in my opinion. So we motor along, and one of the things I love about Subarus is they all drive well in terms of just general balance and handling. And I really do think, all the hype aside of the what they like to call their what do they call it? They call it their hybrid synergy. No, wait, that's Toyota. They call it their symmetrical all-wheel drive. That's it. But there is something to be said for having that engine mounted nice and low, that four-cylinder pancake boxer engine mounted low, and then the crankshaft runs longitudinally, turns like this, and it ties directly into the drive system. Instead of, and what they're talking about with symmetrical, I think they're taking a poke at people that mount their engines transversely. Like most four-cylinder engines in vehicles like this, automobiles, etc., the four-cylinder engine and some V6s, back when we had those, they were mounted transversely. And there has to be a right angle turn from where the crankshaft turns and then goes back to the drive system. Well, Subarus, it's a straight line. And BMWs, they like to put their engines, typically, a lot of the German manufacturers like to put their engine in a longitudinal manner for the same reason, so that you get direct drive out, and they like that. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, in my opinion. The one thing about mounting it transversely is it does give you a lot of packaging options that you don't have when you do it longitudinally. It depends on the engine too. A 4 is not a problem, but the longer the engine gets, i.e. like an inline 6, then it gets a little crazy, but you do have room on the front and the back, and I don't think there is a vehicle available, I should build one, that has a transversely mounted straight six-cylinder engine. Wouldn't that be fun? I'd do that just to see. We used to have, what did we used to have? Oh, we used to have straight 8s. My dad used to tell me about them old, I think Packards or something, had a straight 8. 8 cylinders all in a row. Beautiful. And they pulled like a locomotive for their time. They didn't put out near as much power as our modern engines do, but they did quite well. And they could be built really solid and fairly bulletproof, and maintenance requirements were very minimal. Those were the days! Actually, I can't complain about the maintenance requires today because they're pretty low. When's the last time you had to have your car lubed? Well, probably never. Because the way things are now, everything is pretty much sealed. And if it's sealed properly, it can go an awful long way before you might have to be concerned about it. Many, many, many miles. All right, now we're going to just plow through all this here, go around here and over here. That's what we're going to do. Look at this, right through the mud. Patoom. I bet you didn't realize mud made that noise, did you? No, you did not. So onward we go down this rugged trail. This has a real nice ride on rougher stuff, I must say. Seems very well controlled, very well dampened. It's not hard to see, like I say. This is a very popular car for what it's designed for, which is the outdoor lifestyle. If you have a lifestyle that involves outdoor activities, and you want to be able to get there without being too much of a huge slug of a human being, and which means smaller profile in terms of your physical stature, the crushing power of your wheels, and the amount of fuel you burn, this is a nice choice because it's a versatility. And you see these things where I live, you see them all over the place. And it's a happy year-round car. It can get you to work when the weather is inclement without too much fanfare. You got your X-Drive, of course, that does have several settings. It's not the easiest thing in the world to figure out, though, the control interface system on this vehicle. I would describe as not my favorite. It's once you get used to it, it's perfectly reasonable, but how about that? We have a Crosstrek in front of us. It looks like a vehicle launch. If only we had 3 or 4 more of them. See if I can blow by this guy. A lot of noise when you put your foot down on it a little bit. That was not all the way to the floor, of course. But that was far enough down that you heard the power of the Boxer. That is, like I said, skewed toward getting better fuel economy. And I admire that. I admire anybody that tries to do the revolutionary ecological thing. And I notice now that we're up at about 63 miles an hour that there is a little more wind noise now. It's exactly the opposite of you driving something like a Mercedes or especially BMW. They get quieter the faster you go. They're like airplanes in that they hit their aerodynamic peak at a much higher speed. Although I think we would all agree that all of us that have traveled on an airplane, on a commercial airliner, they're loud. Once they get up to like 600 miles an hour, even in that very thin air at 30,000 feet plus, they're pretty noisy. The overall ambient noise is present. And something you have to deal with. I hope you're not getting flared out there. Are you getting flared out? I'm looking at my lens and I see a flare in it, and that comes from my past when I was working with Panavision Paraflex lenses. And one of my jobs as an assistant cameraman was to keep those things from ever getting a flare in them, so that the viewer of the motion picture in question would have a beautiful flare-free experience. And then somewhere along the line, a guy named Abrams come along, and he thought flares were cool and put them all over his movies. Watch a Star Trek movie that he directed and you'll see flares. You'll see all kinds of flares. Weird how these things come full circle, isn't it? So I haven't really done much of a test on my cruise control, but it's now set. I'm going to take her down. And we have a rough, it's putting the brakes. I see, now that's another thing I love about Subarus. You have a graphic of the car, and when the brakes come on, like it's slowing down by itself using the adaptive cruise control system, guess what? The brake lights come on this little guy here to tell you that's what's happening. I love it. I had a 1982 Subaru four-wheel drive station wagon, and it was the first car I'd ever owned that had a graphic on it that would tell you if a light bulb went out. And it also would tell you if it had all the doors on it. It was amazing. It was, for the time. I mean, that was that was new tech at the time. What in the world is this? Looks like some kind of air intake device. That is fascinating. Oh, hello, friends. We are now underneath our Crosstrek. We're at the outback version. No, we're not. We're not out back under the car. We're out back, but it's not an outback. It's a Crosstrek Sport after all. So, what do we have in our suspension department? We have your classic rear multi-link here. And here's our little old drive shaft right here. And here's our rear differential. And one of the first things you notice about the back of the Crosstrek is it has a lot of ground clearance. There is a lot of room underneath here to climb over rocks and things should you find yourself in that situation. It's not totally built for that, but at the same time, when you have this kind of generous ground clearance, that really helps keep the boulders and wolves at bay, so that it does actually give you a little more capability. if you do want to go off the beaten track in this vehicle, which is nice. As you can see, you got your standard subframe structure right here that holds your multi-link suspension, which is then attached to the unibody construction of the Crosstrek. And up there, as you can see, that's our top, almost like an A-arm, but it's not an A-arm at all, really. Well, it is kind of a twisted A. And you have your front link right there, and then your rear link right here. And then your shock absorber with your coil spring, so it's a coil-over shock situation. And it's pretty good sized brake calipers and everything else. So it's very well built, this thing. You got to remember this particular Crosstrek, while it's undergoing all these evolutions where they change bits and pieces, a lot of the basic running gear on most of the Subarus is pretty much as it has been, because it's done the job really, really well. So they continue to do that. Up there in the front there, you can see water dripping from your air conditioning, which means it's doing its thing. It's conditioning the air. And everything is pretty well tucked in and protected. The only thing that's lower down here is your exhaust pipe, and it's not that low. It's not like it's in danger, hanging low to the ground by any stretch of the imagination. Instead, you got all this, like I said, a lot of ground clearance. Now, what these little ventilation things are right here, that's got to be some kind of aerodynamic wizardry. I don't know what exactly it does, but I like it. And the general finish and general construction underneath here is very, very sound. Again, this is another one of the reasons why these Subarus have been so popular, is because they're very well constructed vehicles. And it's gotten, over time, it's gotten more and more sophisticated, because this multi-link setup is pretty sophisticated. And it's also not overly complex. It's all the things you want. And this is an F right here. If you're wondering now, the A and B and D, I have no earthly idea what the heck that is and why it says F on it. But I'm fascinated by it. It's like this. It's like this weird structure on the side that seems to be channeling air, and then we have the F here. So if you should crawl under your Crosstrek, you're going to find all kinds of mysteries you can solve. And unique mysteries at that. And, you know, I had a 1982 Subaru four-wheel drive station wagon all the way back in the 80s. And the rear differential looked extremely similar to this one. And that's why I can always tell them Subarus, because that rear differential, it always looks like that. All right? Let's get out of here before we get consumed by mosquitoes. Crosstrek fever, we've caught it. Our 2024 Crosstrek, it gets 26 miles per gallon city, 33 highway, with an average of a 29 overall. I got about 23, I'm not sure why that is. But anyway, this comes with your EyeSight driver assist system and your X mode with hill descent control and SI drive engine performance management. All good things for you. And our sticker starts out at $28,995, and you round up with $32,605. So, on the bargain, a great car, and also a very safe car, as I mentioned earlier. So, you guys, I want you to do me a favor. You be careful out there. Don't roll your car. Not a good idea. Even if you do have one of these fine Subarus that can get you through all kinds of weather, and even haul some of your stuff with you. So again, be careful out there, and we will see you next time.